Well, hello and welcome to our webinar. Today's topic, scaling digital innovation in drug discovery and clinical trials. I'm your host, Tony Butler, and I'm joined today by Baris Ersezer, Technical Program Director at Novartis, and our very own Damian Adamczyk, Biotechnology Consulting Manager at Software Mind. It's great to have you with us today, guys. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions as we go through this webinar, then please feel free to write them in the Ask a Question box that should be on the right-hand side of your screen down the bottom, and we'll endeavor to answer those later in our webinar. We would love to hear where you're connecting from. What part of the world are you in right now? Please let us know in the comments section. Now, as we go through our webinar, we'll be asking your opinion on a few key questions. So please do answer those for us as they pop up on your screen. And I think we might have one coming up just in a moment. There we are, just on time. What's the primary area that you work in? Please do let us know of one of those. If it's not one of those, then please just click other and tell us what that is, and then we can share that with you. While we're waiting for you to answer that, we'll introduce Adam and Baris to us. Guys, as mentioned, it's great to have you with us. Perhaps you can introduce yourself to our audience. Baris, perhaps we can come to you first.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yeah, so I'm Baris. I'm working as a Technical Program Director at Novartis. I'm mainly focusing on technical digital health solution or AI models that are going to support phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials, but as well post-launch activities. And I have in the past worked as well in many companies focusing on medical device development, highly regulated devices delivered to be used in hospitals or at home by the patient. And in my current focus, I'm really focusing on clinical innovation. Damian, please.
Yes, thank you, Baris. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I know we have some people from the Europe as well. Thank you, Tony, for hosting this event. I'm really glad that we have you here, and also huge thanks to the Baris for joining us. And for those who are new, I would like to give you some quick background. So Software Mind is a company started at 1999. We has grown now to 1,600 people. In the last few years, we have moved strongly into life science space, which I'm proud of. And if I had to say what is the simplest way, what we do in the Software Mind, I would say that we focus on a range of activities around the data, around software and AI. And all of that is focused on biomedical sciences and research and development activities. So today we will cover together with Baris and Tony will cover topic that is especially I'm interested in, which is innovation. And what is behind my own passion is previous experience, starting from the scientific career. Starting with the startup experience, I was also involved in technology transfer from university to the business. And now I'm being in a place where I can create strategies for other companies and help others to bring their own ideas into working solutions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. It's going to be an interesting webinar. So really look forward to getting your insights in this really key topic. Just seeing some of the answers from our poll, looks like about 50% come from technology vendors or solution providers. 33% are other, so it'd be interesting to know what that is. And then we've got academia and pharmaceutical biotech industry as well. So quite a mix of people on the call. Welcome, everyone. We hope that you enjoy our discussion. So I thought before we sort of get into the real detail of our webinar, it'd be really good just to, I guess, just sit back initially and look at the bigger picture of what we're going to talk about. Damian, obviously you mentioned innovation. Innovation is in the title of our webinar. Now, when we think about innovation, it's ideas that perhaps result in the introduction of new goods or services, or perhaps being innovative in improving the existing goods or services that we offer. When we think about biomedical organizations today, what does innovation mean to both of you? Be interesting to get sort of both viewpoints of sort of how you feel innovation or what it means to the biomedical world. Baris, we come to you first.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so if we define innovation in my context, it will be a technology that will improve the patient outcome, clinical operation, while satisfying the regulatory and business needs. It's really a combination of clinical, regulatory, technical expertise that are combined to deliver a solution, but with business values that will be the multiplier of the value of the innovation. If we go into details of these terms, what means clinical? The clinical outcome is really, do we have a scientifically robust technology that will help the medical decision during a clinical trial or during the recruitment of a patient? The regulatory aspect is combining both drug and device regulation. So as we are delivering tools that are used in the drug studies, it will be compliant with drug expectation and device expectation. They are different, let's say, health authorities. From technical perspective, we are talking about a performing model. If it's an AI model, it should have really evidence that it works, but it is as well secure, interoperable if the system need to be integrated with other systems, and scalable as well, that we can have global studies that are supported by such tool. And the business part, of course, is return of investment, how we are defining the metrics to have, let's say, good product with good adoption, sustainability in mind. So we are not looking for innovation theater, but more a tool that will be used. And yeah, that's how we are defining innovation. Yeah, Damian.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I would give some tricky answer. So I think it's less about inventing in general. In innovation, something less about inventing something completely new. It's more about helping organization to use what already is there. So there's a ton of papers, ton of articles, patents, many solutions around the world, and each of them are made in different own ways. So, but it's not every company manage the how to turn the knowledge into action. So what we do in Software Mind, we can help to bring the innovation that it's already exists and that is already on the market to their own ecosystem to make real, usable and effective. So we look from the beginning. We look at the best existing tools and models. We also able to use different models. So we can be agnostic to the models. So we are able to comprise different open source model, different open source tools, and adapt them to fit the life science context. So so whatever I think about innovation or creativity, it always come back to the idea that it's never about creating something from nothing. It's building on what already we know and already we experience from past projects, from our experience and challenges that we faced. Yeah, this is my definition of innovation.
Thanks, guys. That's it's good, I think, just to set the scene of really what we mean by innovation. So that's been really insightful. I think just listening to sort of both of you and the comments that are coming back, I can see that potentially there are some challenges within, say, leadership and organizational challenges. So leadership trying to drive innovation, the organization perhaps constraints that it may have around. So let's just touch on that for a moment. Where do you see the biggest challenges when organizations, say, try to scale AI? What's your thoughts on that, Baris?
Yeah. So the list is really long. Challenges are more than, let's say, opportunities or, let's say, a chance to succeed. But if we identify them, we can have a plan to address them. So the challenges are becoming opportunities. So, as I'm going to talk about some AI and machine learning models that are really impacting our studies, the first challenge is around data. To have a good product, it's not to have the good machine learning model only, but it's having the data. Having access to data is one of the challenge. We have real world data in different hospitals, in different clinics. Having access to it is one of the challenge, and we always need partners for that as well to get the right data that will be useful for our development phase first. And the quality of this data, how we can have a traceability and information about which data we'll be using, and as well the data set representativeness. So how this data that we are going to use is aligned with the target population that will benefit from this innovation. This is the engineering part still, but data is really key for the AI aspect of the innovation. Then there is a regulatory aspect, which is, as we are in a highly regulated environment, we have, let's say, clear guidance for how to do medical devices or digital technology, but the AI part is not so clear. We have a draft guidance from FDA, we have a new AI Act in Europe, but this is still under construction and changing. So regulatory is a challenge that we should plan in advance how to be ready for it. And the rest is more normal digital technology challenges, which is integration. A solution that is self-contained is limited. If we are integrated with other systems, we are augmenting the functionalities of the solution, but each integration brings as well challenges in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of APIs, how we are integrating one system with the other one, talking the same languages. And from our perspective in pharma industry, we have as well challenges around way of working. The development of a drug takes time and has different steps well defined. But when we are trying to plug to this digital solution where the ways of working and the way to implement such solution is different pace or different mindset, we need to bring together these two worlds that they understand each other, but as well the let's say the device part is able to deliver the tool at a good timing for the drug development aspect. I will stop here. The list is really long, but I think these are the main challenges I see currently in my daily work. Yeah. What about you, Damian? Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree, Baris. I would also mention about the data access, data traceability. Data is so it's also the major issue, but also the major kind of the value that we are looking for as a companies. More and more data. And it's funny because the last there was, I think, in this month article that 60% of the data around the clinical study are collected without any significant purpose or not provide the significant value. It's interesting. So that the data for sure, also regulatory, like you just said, but maybe I will tell about regulation, especially from the point of Europe. So we often talk about the risk of using AI in the wrong way, and it's important, but it also slows down innovation, and sometimes it's easier for companies to develop AI solutions abroad, in places like United States. So there's regulatory framework much less restrictive, but from the European perspective, we should also consider opposite risk. Like, is risk of not innovating, of not being part of the AI development while others move ahead? I think this is something that we should take into account. I would also say about explainability. It's also related to the models, to the data. So it's still difficult to validate fully and fully understand the reasons behind a model answer. If you think about the patients, each patient is unique and they have different genetic backgrounds, biological factors, different lifestyles. So when AI model give us diagnostic output or predict any disease risk or predict something, we need to know how each of these factors contributed to this decision. And this transparency is needed not only to explain decisions, but also develop the better systems in the future. So AI explainability, and maybe last, because this is the first two are very common in the literature, very common in reports, but I would like to also give the third challenge, which will be how we evaluate the market outcomes. So I think there is still lack of visibility. So how the different AI solutions perform in practice. So how to explain that? So taking the patient recruitment, for example, there are many platforms that support remote consent and remote enrollment. And one recent paper compared, I think, 14 different platforms from the big players, and all of these platforms having different architecture, different functions behind that. So we know that they have some effectiveness, but we cannot compromise them. I mean, the effectiveness of AI. So I think these three things are major one.
Thanks, guys. I think some of those things you mentioned, like data. I mean, we see that across multiple industries, don't we? Where sort of quality of data and so forth is a real challenge for some. So, when you think about innovation, obviously you've mentioned sort of the technical side of it and the sort of the improving what we've currently got and making those sort of improvements. Just touching on sort of the leadership role within that, what role does sort of leadership play in getting those innovations out of the lab and into production? What role does that leadership have in that?
Perhaps if I can explain, my point of view is the leadership is one term, but we should maybe separate into layers. We have leadership role in terms of being the sponsor, allocating the budget, or giving even an environment where the team members can work with some risk, because innovation is always having a risk of failure or risk of results, and having the top leadership really giving the green light to the teams by allocating budget and being the sponsor of the initiative is key element. And then this should be cascaded to the other layers of the management, where we have resource allocation, where we have different KPIs that are always tracked on the performance of people, performance of the teams. All of this should be aligned with this, let's say, top leadership vision or direction. And this is even cascaded to the operational level. One, we have interaction with stakeholders, how we are, let's say, working with stakeholders to get their inputs during the development, involving them really at an early stage, having as well enough material to share back with them in terms of training, how to use the tool efficiently, how to have a change management in place that will not deliver just one tool, but keep it maintained and operated. And the goal of this alignment from top-down leadership for me is really building a trust with stakeholders, because the adoption is key, and not because the model is performing or it is well designed, well engineered only, but it's because people are interested by the solution. And for that, we need to build this trust by transparent validation, really explaining what the tool is doing, what data is used, and how it is operated. We can compare it to the gold standards as well. If they are already product on the market, we should compare and not showing it as a black box. This is valid for the clinician. This is valid for key opinion leaders. This is valid as well for health authorities. And the solution that we deploy is not just bringing a value as a functionality, but should be as well deployed in terms of IT and security. We should be transparent on that as well, having our threat modeling, pen testing, and different activities in place, that we are delivering a system that will not break the existing systems if we integrate etc. Not bringing a risk, but bringing only functionalities. And in terms of quality or regulatory aspect, we should have clear claims. We should not oversell the functionality. It's not an industry where we can promise everything and finally the product is not having all the features. The claim should be really one-to-one matching the functionalities because it is, let's say, impacting the safety of the patient. Sometimes it is impacting the clinical decisions. So the claim it should be really aligned in terms of traceability. We can show which data was used. We can show to the stakeholders how we have developed, what evidence we collected, and what the evidence are really showing and not showing as well. And being ready for audits, because going through all this life cycle of a product development, we have multiple audits from health authorities. We have audits as well, internal audits. When we are using partners, we are auditing them as well. So having this readiness and having as well the post-market surveillance in mind. Cannot just release a product on the market, when, even if it's clinical trial under a controlled environment or it is a commercial product. We need to have a plan to continuously monitor what's happening with the product. This is how to build a trust, and this is starting from leadership alignment. And if I give some practical moves how to make this happen is when we have an innovation idea in place, we should have a clearly identified product owner that is building around him a cross-functional team that will have representative from all this domain that I explained in the definition of innovation, which is clinical, technical, regulatory, and all these people are co-owning the, let's say, the release of a product, and all their expectations are fulfilled. Yeah, that's how I will summarize the importance of the leadership and how it is cascaded to the work that we share with stakeholders.
Yeah, so Baris, you're absolutely right. I will agree that stakeholders are crucial, but also it's the confirmation that you just said. It's key step is to involve the real users early. So the people who will really benefit from the solutions. So, for example, in life science, that might be scientists, that might be clinicians, that might be patients even. So they are not like, the stakeholders, but they are crucial because they are, they will take the value that will be created at the end, but that value have to be checked a little before at the beginning. So depending on the use cases, it might be very different. But the challenge is that sometimes that loudest voice in the room, often it might be some researchers, senior researchers, some specialists. Their voices are not always represent the full picture of the value. I think it sometimes happened. So we have to try balance those scientific priorities with operational and strategic ones. So for example, the researcher might not improve because the scientific way of thinking. Researcher might not improve efficiency or quality. That's why we always look how the innovation translate into outcomes that we can measure, like shorter timelines, like better data quality, like reduced cost. And that's where the leadership alignment becomes crucial. Leaders need to share a clear understanding of the value, so they collect different, the outcome from the other users, not only the scientific teams but also the business users terms. So I can give you also the fresh example. So we have been working recently with Chief Innovation Officer and Chief Information Officers from the life science company. And there was AI project around tissue diagnostics in cancer. So both guys were very experienced, one from the data and IT side, and the other from the scientific side, but they don't fully speak at the same language. So for instance, when we talk about the data quality, the IT perspective focused on the image size, image resolutions, image quality, and while the scientific view was about whatever the training data sets represent different tumor structures and patterns in the tissue, and there's very difficult to explain each other what is really behind the data that we are the quality of the data that we want to achieve. Yeah, I think you, Baris, also have this in your because you are able to better understand the images. For example, that if the cancer is in some tissue, it might be we need to separate a little bit different data sets to train the same model.
So do you want to say something there, Baris?
No, go ahead.
Okay. It's interesting just listening, I guess, to both sides there, that when you sort of we talk about sort of the leadership role and so forth, and it seems like a real balancing act of trying to sort of drive success with that, because I remember many years ago when I sort of had my technical hat on and a technologist showing me something that they had sort of been really innovative with, and technically it worked and it was great. But I remember just saying, I don't know anyone that would actually want this. And I think it was because basically that innovative effort, there was no, I guess, grounding of business impact. What would it mean to a business opposed to just technically working? How, as a leader, how do you make sure that innovation effort is really grounded with business impact and not just driven by technically being successful?
Yeah, that's the kind of the balance between strategy and execution. Before going in the details, implementing the really nice technology, we should have a strategy in mind. Otherwise, as you said, it's a nice tool, but nobody wants to use. And before entering directly the execution, the strategy should be around thinking about the product. And it is valid for any industry, and as well in our case, is to have definition of what we are trying to build before entering to how we are building, what technology we use. The tool that we use to have the final result is secondary compared to what product we want to build. And the way we define what is a product in our case is going through different aspects. Again, the intended use, how we are going to use this technology or this innovation. We define the context of use. Is it during a treatment? Is it during a recruitment of a patient? Is it during remote monitoring? So the context of use that will define intended use, what the value this tool is bringing. We define the target users. We define the workflows. What is a patient journey? What is a clinician journey? What is the other caregivers and other people that are potentially having access to the tool? What are their expectations? And what are the KPIs? How we are going to measure that it is bringing value? And of course, having a regulatory pathway. Once this product is defined with all these elements, then we can enter to the execution phase where we will create requirements, we will create functionalities that are directly supporting this definition of the product. And we can have even the breakdown of the value proposition. Let's say, who is benefiting from the tool and how much can we measure, how much time we are gaining due to the tool, what is the cost reduction due to the tool, and how we can measure that, what are the tools in place to measure. So once all of this is in place, it is easy to then give the green light to the technical, clinical team, regulatory is in place, and everyone is delivering the right product that is supporting this product definition. If this is not done, we enter into, let's say, uncontrolled outcome, which is can have a great product. It is really accurate. It is really nicely working in the laboratory, but we cannot put in the hand of anyone because it is not ready to be scaled. It is not regulated, let's say, clear. We don't have enough evidence to have the regulation clear, and we don't have users' needs identified. Nobody needs maybe the tool.
Interesting.
Yeah, but so yeah, I have to. You really nice present how we have to provide this business understanding the business value, because often innovation projects are led by technical or scientific enthusiasm, but they miss what really matters for the business, like efficiency, cost, time, results. So we have to be sure that those users are at the table from the beginning. This is what I said in the last question, but it's also important to balance the different voices, life science, senior researchers, because they might push for a complex future, but doesn't always translate into impact. So we have to be careful that if there is scientific impact, we have to be sure that also the business impact is there, and we look for the metrics that you just said. Like is this change the process? Is it faster? Is it make less errors? Is it better data quality around that? So in short, we have to connect the technical progress with real world outcomes. If it doesn't move the needle in operation or R&D productivity, that's not. I think we should say this is not innovation, but more like experiment that we have to be careful.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, Baris, you mentioned an expression. I just wrote it down: strategies and execution. So I think those two things from what sort of both of you have said, and in particular you Baris, is that the link between having the right strategy and executing in line with that strategy is absolutely critical. And for a leader and someone in a leadership role to really understand that, and to be able to drive sort of all parts of that to make sure that happens. So that's really insightful too. Thank you. Let's just talk about reuse versus build new. When it comes to perhaps smarter ways of doing things or different ways of doing things, when is it better to adapt, say, existing tools or platforms? And when do you think is it better than go, look, let's just start from scratch? Well, how would you make a decision on that?
Yeah, the first temptation is always, let's find an existing solution because it's already validated. It might have all the compliance and the CE marking, UKCA, FDA clearance. So this is a temptation at the beginning because if we want to be quickly delivering a solution, we will look for what is existing. But usually, if the tool is available for everyone. It is not, let's say, a solution that might bring a differentiating advantage for us, or might be, let's say, not supporting the innovative drug we developed. If we have a new drug and we are trying to measure different endpoints during the study for this drug, we might not have existing solution. So then building is mandatory because we will define new criteria, we will define new biomarkers, and we will go through all this strategy to execution and having a product at the end. But even in this build strategy, we should be smart in terms of technology selection. We can have this hybrid approach, which is we should not reinvent the wheel where we have already infrastructure existing. We have cloud systems, and we talk about platforms. If there is already a platform that is covering 80-90% of the features we want, like user management, like data storage, like integration between systems, we should look for solutions such that we can not starting from zero, we are building, but on top of something that is existing. So we reuse maybe 70-80%, and we are focusing on the core model that we are going to develop and deploy it on top of this existing platform. So for me, it works better when we have such a story where we can reuse a lot, maybe up to 80%, maybe 100% if this already exists solution. But if we have to build, we should come with a good approach that is building on top of something that is existing. And we can be inspired by, again, other industry, but even in our industry, we have partners already having such platforms that we can deploy on top of it. That will be more a decision in terms of architecture of the solution, but building or reusing in terms of main functionality, it is more driven by if it's existing, yes, we want to use it. But if we want to build, let's build the missing piece.
Interesting. Thank you. Damian, do you have anything to add?
Yes. So I think 60-70% of hybrid approach and reuse of the things that you already have is pretty impressive, and because we start many different projects from the versatility of the project that we make are from the starting from the microbiology clinical study, some agriculture, for example. So we often start from the beginning, or looking for the foundation, like looking what already we can reuse, literature, papers, some open source models, but we when we look at that foundation, we have to check the quality of these tools, of these models. We have to check their long-term, I would say, usage, or usage and reliability. So are we be able to be sure that there is the minimal risk that if we start using something, that will not give us future risk. So I think there is also related to the kind of mindset challenge, because sometimes people think innovation means building everything from the scratch. This is what I said on the very beginning, but this is not true. Like I explained before, and real innovation is about creating new value. So I even would like to share maybe some case. So taking into account radiology. So I have the data from the beginning of this year. So there is something around 75-80% of FDA approved AI solutions that are designed and focused on radiology. And in January, there was something around 1,400 approved solution, which means that there is a lot of solutions only for radiology. So every 4 out of 5 models are solving very similar problems, and it might raise the question: do we really need to build another radiology model from the scratch, or should we reuse what already out there, instead of focus our efforts on new areas? Maybe we should focus on the new areas, because there is many very similar areas where also the low-hanging fruits are. So should we choose that there is a lot of competition in radiology, but maybe we should make more effort in other fields as well.
It's interesting. It's again, it's quite a balance, isn't it? Of where we might get some people in the business go, let's get something in new. I've seen it, it's great, versus going, let's just improve what we've got because it's tested, it's here. We know that if we do this and do that, it will sort of move us into that innovative place. So yeah, again, real balance there in deciding, do we go new? Do we just improve what we've got? I sort of just want us to change it up a little bit and sort of delve more into the AI side of things. But just remember to we thank you to our audience so far for the questions that you've put forward. Please do have them coming in. We do appreciate the questions, which we will come to a little later. I think we've also got perhaps another poll question coming up for our audience as well, which will come up in a minute. There we go, just on cue. In your view, where will AI have the biggest impact in the next few years? Big question. Really interested in your comments there. Our audience, please do let us know what you think. So perhaps just focusing now on AI insights, where do you both see AI making the biggest short-term impact in, say, drug discovery, clinical development? Be interesting to get your view on that sort of within sort of the AI focus. That's Baris, we can come to you.
Maybe Damian, we can start this time to change the order.
Yeah, of course. I'm wondering what you choose, Baris, at this, the poll question that just came out. Maybe when you will share it, because I choose patient engagement. I think this is the thing. But if I look at clinical development, especially and clinical trials, because this is the area that I more be experienced, I would say. Drug discovery is your area, so I will cover the clinical development. So I think that right now, so the biggest challenges is the patient recruitment, and this is what the data really said. So the number of studies still having issue to find the patients. So last years, 2024, 2025. 2025 is really surprising, because there's like almost half of the study are stuck in the recruitment phase. It's really stunning. So in my opinion, AI can really help here, improving how we identify and match the patients to the studies. There is also a lot of potential to automate the process. So the process in clinical trials are still very manual. The process is very people-based or the people-driven. Things like screening patient records, checking inclusion or exclusion criteria, even helping the investigators to reach out to the patients. All of that might be much more affected or improved. Yeah, so I think in general, so the short term of AI focus on the areas where the low risk is and the high friction process. This process that don't directly affect medical decisions, but have big impacts on efficiency, which is patient engagement and retention, patient recruitment as well. So we can use the AI tools to better communicate with the patients, with the participants. We can predict the dropout rate, or even work on the solutions that limit the dropout rate thanks to AI. Maybe find some patterns that for the people, it's difficult to find the patterns that AI can find, and even it might be kind of behavior in patients. Yeah, so I think this is the thing that we should focus on.
Thanks. Well, what I'm thinking about 0 to 3 years as well, in a really short term, I see similarly to you potential impact on clinical trials. That's aligned as well with what I'm doing daily work. Maybe I don't have full visibility on other, let's say, AI impact on the drug development, but in a short term, I agree with you. On the trial recruitment, we have a big potential to scan all these EHR systems to find the patients that are eligible to be recruited for the study. It's really a manual task today, identification of patient with all the selection criteria that are defined in the protocol. It takes time, it takes effort from the patient to come to visit on the site, having all the tests, all the questionnaire field. If we have AIs that are able to look at EHR systems with patient records already existing and identifying them, it will facilitate the life of the investigators to contact the right patient immediately, increase the recruitment rate. All the patients they might invite to the site will be eligible because we have all these checks done in advance. This is one type of automation. The second automation I see with AI is really on imaging. It takes time as well to look at the images, finding the details. The doctors are really expert on that, but when an AI model is really trained for a specific task, they can really accelerate this, again, number of images, number of patient image that has been assessed with the tool will again accelerate the identification of patient or diagnosis of patient. It could be in a context of clinical trial, but it could be as well in a normal practice. And the type of image comes in mind is OCT images for ophthalmology. It could be a CCTA image for cardiovascular, and all type of images that are existing in the hospitals that are used to really diagnose patient or invite patient for study enrollment. And the last one will be more, let's say, impacting the drug development in terms of digital endpoint, having information coming from the patient-reported outcome or by the digital, let's say, traditional biomarkers might be limited when we have AI able to, let's say, having a monitoring of the patient at home 24 hours is providing much more information than having just a questionnaire where we are asking to the patient, how do you feel? They will answer how they feel in the last 5 minutes, 1 hour, maybe 1 day. But if we have wearables, mobile apps, or different, let's say, algorithms that are really monitoring the patient condition, this will have direct impact on the digital endpoint or the endpoint of the study. And it can go through biomarkers as well. Instead of measuring the patient blood or urine, we can have algorithms that are as well identifying some biomarkers. These are the really short-term, high-impact area I see as well part of my job. Yeah.
Interesting.
If I may give you kind of following up question, Baris, because you said about imaging. I'm wondering because always or very often it came up during discussions, in environment that we having better and better models, and we already know that models are better in diagnostics. They are more precise than human to find some spots that will tell us that there is cancer, and even the exact type of the cancer. But we still have the issue: who own the risk if the model is wrong? Is it doctor? Is it clinician? Is it patient? How you approach this?
Yeah. This is going to the intended use when we define such a product, and depending on the accuracy or evidence we are able to collect, we need to define the intended use. If it is automating one of the tasks, doesn't mean it is doing the end-to-end patient management, patient treatment. And most of the device we are developing and making available for trials is if it's a medical device, it is providing information for the doctor to make the decision. So it could be patient identification, but the doctor is the final decider for inclusion of or not to the study. If it's part of an image scanning, the doctor will have to do the diagnosis. So the tool is digital diagnostic tool, yes, but one diagnostic from the tool is not for the trial inclusion is not sufficient. There are other criteria usually to have a patient recruited for the study. In the context of study, it will be always a doctor making the decision to have the patient getting the treatment or getting the placebo arm, etc. So all of these are well structured in the protocols, and the main person is a primary investigator in the context of study. In the context of normal practice, I think more the tool is having evidence that it works and it is aligned with the claim, intended use, and more the clinician will trust the diagnosis coming from the tool. It's related to what I was saying earlier as well. If we are transparent how our tool works and we have stakeholder management done properly, clinician will trust as well the outcome of the tool. Yeah.
Mm. Great. Thank you for this insight.
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting. 46% of our audience believe that drug discovery and development will be the biggest impact in the next few years. Obviously, it's AI is going to have an impact sort of right across the broad spectrum of things. But yeah, that's 23% clinical trials. Our audience thinks. Just, I'm mindful of time, but I just wanted to ask, when we've done a number of webinars around AI, and there's always myths and common misconceptions around what AI is going to do. It's going to make everyone redundant. It's going to, it's going to do everyone's job. What misconception around AI within life sciences do you want to put right? What have you heard that's that is just a misconception, and you just want to share with the audience that this is not where AI is going to go. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I can start maybe, but before, Baris, what did you choose in last question? I'm really curious.
Oh yeah, as it's part of my job, it's really clinical trials, and I see concrete example. We have many development in the pipeline, and we believe in this. As I said, I might not have full visibility on other domains of the drug development where while the team are working on molecules or compound, they are using AI as well to test different scenario. I cannot explain there, but I know many programs are ongoing. But clinical trial is my personal answer. Yeah.
You know, I choose exactly the same, but we are in the minority, so
Well, it's the second most popular.
okay. So, Tony, you asked about AI misconception. Am I right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So I think if I thinking about the myths about AI in life sciences, I think it will be about effectiveness. So there is, the belief that once you apply AI to the process, it will, like magic, like automatically make things faster or more accurate. And it really, the outcome often depends on the data quality, like the Baris said, but also the context of the algorithm itself. This is also the crucial thing. So for example, so one of the recent article that I have read, so I already told about this 60% of clinical data collection doesn't have the real-time impact. I think I already said that. So data, what I want to say, it's like before, the data that we collect, we have to collect, we have to know from the very detailed process of the clinical evaluation, for example, what data are crucial and how the process looks like, the physical and, the whole aspect of the process. We should know it very well. So when the people say AI didn't work, it's often not because the technology failed, but because the data wasn't relevant or the system wasn't validated properly. This is I think this is the misconception. Do you agree, Baris, or what's your?
Yes, I agree. To answer to this question, I want to first address maybe the Tony comment, like AI will replace clinicians, scientists, and I agree with statement that it's not the case. The way we design such tools are not made to replace these key people in the healthcare system, but it's giving them tools that they can have more, let's say, patient treated, having more, let's say, time for their decision because there is some automation. And Damian, I agree with you that the magic aspect of AI is more for, let's say, mass media, where we are presenting this as a intelligent system that is doing whatever he wants, and we are not able to explain what AI is doing. We are not able to talk about, let's say, how the decision is made. And we even have this myth that when we run the same AI multiple times with the same data, we can have a different outcome. This might be true in certain contexts where we want such creativity, we want such results that are different. But in life science, the way we develop, the way we use machine learning models are with a focus to have some transparency, how it works, explainability, why the decision from the AI is what we expect. We can do all type of analysis, and to compare this to a deterministic system like an application that has a really clear algorithm and the outcome is always the same. We should see AI systems still as an application which is having an expected outcome when it is trained with the right data. But the outcome is not deterministic like an algorithm, but it is based on the training. But we collect enough evidence that we have a consistent and outcome. The result is not just the value; it is as well the probability of this value to be close to the value we expect. So we define the expectation, and if we train it with the right data, with the right model, we have explainability, we have sensitivity analysis, we have specificity of the model, and it is not a black box, and it is not magic. It is a software application at the end.
Good, thank you. So it's really worth, sort of keeping those things in mind, isn't it? So we don't sort of let this AI discussion sort of run away with ourselves. I'm really mindful of time, guys, and I think we could probably sit here for another hour or two and discuss this. But I'm mindful that our audience has asked a couple of questions, and I really want to get to those. So let's just do that. We've got a question from Alex. And he says, how do you build trust across stakeholders, scientists, IT, and compliance when introducing AI into core processes like drug discovery or clinical trials?
Yeah, so I can start. I think this is the first. Building trust is a long process because, we are not starting with the solutions like, like drug development, for example. We have to test the drug for the small dose of the patients. So the small number of the patients, starting from the single patient, 10 patients, 100 patients, and few or dozen thousand of the patient before we really get the enough data and enough security to work with this, to give this drug to the people. So I think we need evaluation. And this is what's happening now. So we are better and better and better, and at some point, maybe not the doctor will be. So probably still doctor will be responsible, but the doctor will have the more trust to the tools that we provide to the doctors, to the clinicians.
Yeah, I can add to that the existing regulation is helping us to provide as well this level of confidence or evidence. Whatever tool we use that is having a medical decision impact is considered such as medical device, and there is an important phase before releasing it, which is clinical evaluation. And clinical evaluation is split in multiple steps, which is explaining the clinical relevance of the tool and having evidence that it is having meaningful outcome for the clinical decision. It has a clinical potential investigation, so we can even have a clinical trial expectation that the tool is really having the value that we claim in the intended use. And all of these elements are first convincing health authorities that we can safely release our product and be used with a real patient, but as well providing evidence again to clinicians and other decision makers that the development was not, let's say, without controls and without evidence that it is safe and have efficacy that we claim. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. So I guess it really comes back to that sort of strategy and execution, doesn't it? And making sure that's really understood across the organization. Thanks for that question, Alex. We've got one more from Alwera. How do you think we should design the interaction between end users, for example, doctors and XAI, so that users feel transparency, but not overwhelmed by analysis and too much data? What's your thought on that one?
Yeah, if I can quickly answer, the design and the identification of user needs should take into account what the specific user, the clinician, wants to see. If he wants, in this context from the tool, just an icon on the screen which is green and red, we should not provide more information. But if the decision of the clinician is based on data that he should understand, not just an information, but a record, a value, we should then implement this. So the stakeholder management or user assessment and user need assessment is exactly for that reason. We should deliver a tool that is useful for him in this workflow and not a tool that we believe is nice to build.
Yeah, I think Baris really covered the topic. Yeah, the perfect answer.
Yes, simplicity is key. So I think that's the end of our questions, and in fact, the end of our webinar today. I don't know where the time's gone. It's absolutely flown by. Thanks both for your insights. To our audience, if there is part of the webinar that you've missed or you want to watch again, then it will be available in about a week or so. So watch out for the link that you'll be sent. Just want to say thank you to Baris and Damian for sharing your knowledge and experience and what has been such an interesting topic today. Really insightful. Some of those real key takeaway points. Just want to say a huge thank you to both of you for those. To our audience, if you've got any questions specific to you or your organization, or you need maybe some assistance, then please do feel free to reach out to us or email us with the contacts that will come up on the screen shortly. As always, we do want to thank the team behind the scenes for helping to run the webinar, but most of you, to our audience, we just want to thank you for joining us here today. We hope this webinar has been insightful, and we look forward to seeing you again on our next Software Mind webinar. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.